This is SpaceTime, Series 25, Episode 35. Coming up on SpaceTime, NASA extends flight operations for its Mars Ingenuity Helicopter. Work on the International Space Station continues as normal, despite the growing tensions with Russia on the ground. And Astra launches 3 new satellites from Alaska. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
NASA has extended flight operations of its Mars Ingenuity Helicopter through to at least September. The tiny tissue box-sized rotocopter, which landed in the red planet's Jezero crater attached to the Mars Perseverance rover more than a year ago, was only ever meant to undertake 5 proof-of-concept test flights. The Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, Thomas Zurbuchen, says that less than a year ago, we didn't even know if powered controlled flight of an aircraft on another world was possible. But Ingenuity's efforts have now clearly made history in the annals of air and space exploration. In the months ahead, history's first aircraft to operate from the surface of another world will support Perseverance's upcoming science campaign exploring the ancient river delta of Jezero crater in the ongoing search for signs of ancient microbial life on the red planet. Along the way, it'll continue testing its own capabilities to support the design of future Mars air vehicles. NASA's announcement comes on the heels of the rotocopter's 21st successful flight, the first of 3 needed to get the helicopter to cross the northwest portion of a major region known as CETA and reach its next staging area. Ingenuity's new area of operations will be entirely different from the modest, relatively flat terrain it's been flying over since its first mission back in April last year. Several kilometres wide and formed by an ancient river, the fan-shaped delta rises more than 40 metres above the crater floor. It's filled with jagged cliffs, angled surfaces, projecting boulders and sand-filled pockets that could stop a rover in its tracks, or even upend a helicopter trying to land. The delta promises to hold numerous geologic revelations, perhaps even the proof necessary to determine that microscopic life once existed on Mars billions of years ago. Upon reaching the delta, Ingenuity's first order of business will be to help determine which of 2 dry river channels Perseverance should take when it's time to climb to the top of the delta. Along with routing assistance, the data provided by the helicopter will also help the Perseverance team assess potential science targets. Ingenuity will also be called upon to image geologic features which are either too far away or too difficult for the 6-wheeled Perseverance rover to get to. It'll also scout landing zones and caching sites for the Mars Sample Return mission. To fly towards the end of the decade, it'll collect the samples now being assembled by Perseverance for return to Earth. The Jezero River Delta campaign will be the biggest challenge Ingenuity's faced since its first flight on Mars. To enhance its chances of success, mission managers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, are increasing the size of the mission team. And they're also uploading new flight software geared to improve operational flexibility and flight safety. And several of these upgrades have already led to reduced navigation errors during flight, which increases both flight and landing safety. A recent software change already on the rotocopter frees Ingenuity from its previously programmed maximum altitude of 15 metres. Increasing altitude will result in incremental increases in both airspeed and range. A second upgrade allows Ingenuity to change its airspeed as it flies. And another enables it to better understand and adjust to changes in terrain texture during flight. Future software upgrades will include adding terrain elevation maps to its navigation filter and a landing hazard avoidance capability. But before aerial reconnaissance of the Delta region can begin, Ingenuity needs to complete its journey to the area. It's a complex flight of around 350 metres and includes a sharp bend in its course to avoid a large hill. After that, the team will determine whether 2 or 3 more flights will be needed in order to complete the crossing of northwestern CETA. The first experimental flight on another planet took place on April 19, 2021 and lasted just 39.1 seconds. After another 4 flights, 6 more minutes in the air, and travelling a total distance of 499 metres, NASA transitioned Ingenuity into an operational demonstration phase, testing its ability to provide an aerial dimension to the Perseverance mission. And with the completion of Flight 21, the rotocopter has now logged over 38 minutes of airtime and travelled some 4.64 kilometres. This report from NASA TV.
NASA's Curiosity rover, which has been climbing Mount Sharp since 2014, is about to drive up onto a broad, sloping surface called the Green Hue Pediment. This will allow scientists to fast forward perhaps millions of years in Mars's history and study the history of liquid water written into these different layers of rock. Over in Jezero Crater, the Perseverance rover is getting ready for a new destination and science campaign. And it's consistently setting driving records on Mars by relying more on self-driving software that allows the rover to avoid obstacles without having to consult a human on Earth. Perseverance will be pushing north in an area where an ancient river flowed into a body of water. It left sediments in a shape called a delta. The rover will collect more rock samples there. The Ingenuity Mars helicopter will support Perseverance's upcoming science campaign. The helicopter has been given the green light to try to keep flying on Mars for the next few months. Upgrades to its navigation software will improve flight and operational safety.
This is SpaceTime. Still to come, work on the International Space Station continues despite growing tensions on the ground, and Astra successfully launches 3 satellites from Alaska. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. NASA says that despite the growing tensions over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, astronaut Mark Vande Hei will return to Earth from the International Space Station as planned aboard a Russian Soyuz capsule at the end of the month. Vande Hei launched as part of expeditions 64, 65 and 66 aboard the Soyuz MS-18 spacecraft back on April 9, 2021. His mission will break the record for the longest ever spaceflight by an American astronaut, with 353 days in space. He's slated to return to Earth aboard the Soyuz, landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan on March 30th. He'll then be immediately flown back to the United States aboard a Gulfstream jet. Meanwhile, despite the growing tensions between NASA and the Russian Federal Space Agency Roscosmos, operations aboard the orbiting outpost are continuing to go smoothly. In fact, 2 NASA astronauts have just completed a 7-hour extravehicular activity, or EVA, which is NASA speak for spacewalk, in order to prepare a site for the installation of another pair of new solar arrays for the space station.
For the crew left right to come back.
And Chari is now out of the hatch.
Arming up the tool boxes.
And Kayla, we'd like you to fair lead at the base of the Cedar Spur.
I copy that.
Nice job. You're looking good. That strut bag is flying formation with you.
We'll have the corner adjustables down. I'll work on the other one.
Copy. Adjustable on one corner.
But the EVA wasn't without its drama, with one of the tethers used by the astronauts failing to retract as it should, and one of the crew having difficulties finding an anchor footing during the EVA, which included installing brackets and struts to support the new solar arrays.
Baron is now out of the space station. Baron is EV1.
I'm out, and I'm working on my anchor hook is attached to the forward airlock steering. Gate closed, tiger lock, black on black. I have a good safety tether path, and I'm going to work on Raj's anchor hook.
Copy, and Raj is going to the aft steering.
Just working on repositioning my FDU. I got snagged. I think I'm the way out. Make sure I can get to it later. Roger, your anchor hook is attached to the airlock aft steering. Gate closed, slider locked, black on black. When ready, you have a go to release your waist tether. Copy. I've got to go to release my waist tether. Let me fix the FDU here first, and I'll work on that.
Okay, copy that. And Kayla, please turn on your HECA.
The concerns over Vande Hei's return to Earth came when Washington and other Western nations began imposing sanctions on Russia over the Kremlin's decision to invade the Ukraine and its callous targeting of civilians. NASA's assurances about Vande Hei's ride came despite Roscosmos's chief Dmitry Rogozin's threats to abandon him in space. Rogozin warned that sanctions will end cooperation aboard the space station, placing the orbiting outpost's future in doubt. Moscow's already cancelled a lucrative Soyuz commercial launch for British company OneWeb in retaliation to the sanctions. Meanwhile, Russian workers at the European Space Agency's Kourou spaceport in French Guiana have been ordered to leave the facility, with all Soyuz flights from the complex now cancelled. Moscow's also shut down its telescope aboard the joint Russian and German Spectre Space Observatory. The joint Roscosmos ESA-ExoMars mission to the Red Planet, slated for launch in September, has also been cancelled, and Russia's withdrawn its team who are servicing the RS-180 rocket engines used by America on the Atlas V launch vehicle. All in all, we are certainly living in interesting times. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, Astra launches 3 new satellites into orbit from Alaska, and later in the science report, evidence that people pushing homeopathy are failing to show studies with negative results. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. Astra Space have successfully launched 3 small satellites into orbit. The LV-0009 launch vehicle was flown from the Pacific Spaceport Complex on Kodiak Island in Alaska. The mission had been delayed by a day because of bad weather and lightning.
The vehicle's on internal control.
The rocket has taken control of the countdown and everything is on track for liftoff.
Upper stage tanks at pre-liftoff. First stage fuel tank pressurizing. 10, water on. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. First motion. Vehicle has cleared the tower.
LV-0009, it's on its way to space. Max Q in just under a minute.
T+45, still looking good. See the vehicle pitching downrange south from Kodiak, Alaska towards orbit. And a beautiful contrail as the vehicle ascends towards space. The vehicle is now through the area of maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q, the point of maximum stress on the vehicle. Everything looking good.
We have about 90 seconds remaining in the first stage portion of the flight.
Coming up will be main engine cutoff, or MECO, which is the shutdown of the 5 first stage engines prior to stage separation. Plume from the first stage expanding as the rocket gets higher in the atmosphere with less atmospheric pressure.
T+2 minutes into the flight of LV-0009.
Good tracking downrange.
And in just about 30 seconds, we have a string of milestones all in quick succession. We'll have the first stage engines shut down, main engine cutoff, and then the fairing separation and stage separation and upper stage ignition steps will happen in very quick succession.
Safety can't confirm. Option received. Option received. Vehicles left the gate.
There's fairing separation.
MECO.
Stage separation.
We have SEP.
And upper stage engine ignition. Cheers coming from the Astra team as a significant portion of our flight milestones have been accomplished. We have about 5 minutes of second stage flight before our payloads are deployed.
The payloads aboard the mission, which was called Spaceflight Astra 1, included the ORSAT-0 spacecraft for the non-profit Portland State Aerospace Society, which will test different ways of monitoring the global distribution of high-altitude cirrus clouds. Also aboard was Indiana-based manufacturer Nearspace's S4 crossover payload, which remained attached to the rocket's upper stage and measured space radiation and other space environmental conditions. There was also a third payload on the mission, but it was kept classified. The flight was an important success following last month's failure during a launch from Cape Canaveral, which caused the company's stocks to plummet. The company eventually traced that problem to a faulty payload fairing and software problems, which prevented the rocket from recovering when it began tumbling out of control. This is SpaceTime. That's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Acast, Amazon Music, Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favorite podcast download provider, and from spacetimewithstuartgary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies. Or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.com for full details. And if you want more SpaceTime, please check out our blog, where you'll find all the stuff we couldn't fit in the show, as well as heaps of images, news stories, loads of videos, and things on the web I find interesting or amusing. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.tumblr.com. That's all one word, and that's Tumblr without the E. You can also follow us through @StuartGary on Twitter, @SpaceTimeWithStuartGary on Instagram, through our SpaceTime YouTube channel, and on Facebook, just go to facebook.com/SpaceTimeWithStuartGary. And SpaceTime is brought to you in collaboration with Australian Sky and Telescope magazine, your window on the universe.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.